Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the baseball podcast. On a day after some would say the best day of the WBC, I would be one of those people. I think, obviously, I would say a member of the U.S. club, I am a huge supporter, and I got to be honest with you, Ethan. We were watching the game together. I don't know about you. After Daniel Bard, exited the game, I was on suicide watch.
I felt the same way. I was forlorn. One might say morose. And
True. Yeah.
we can blame Daniel Bard. He didn't have it. But I think the blame I was talking about this with you, I was talking about this with Sean. I think the blame
Yeah.
if they had lost this game lands squarely on the shoulders of Mark DeRosa. And I think this is a phenomenon that happens all too often in sports. And it's just the human condition. There's nothing really wrong with it. But if they lost this game, people would be outside Mark DeRosa's house with pitchforks. But since they won, people kind of go, oh, that was weird. And then you move on. You know what I mean? I felt the
Yeah,
same way.
What a weird little misstep.
Yeah, weird little misstep. I felt the same way about Australia when they beat Korea. Like Dave Nielsen made some questionable decisions. I felt the same way about Cuba when they lost to the Netherlands. Like it happens. And it's the kind of thing where since they won, people are kind of like, whew, dodged a bullet. All right, on to Cuba. And that is just the way like we're programmed to be. But Mark DeRosa, man, he tried his hardest to lose that game. He brought in Daniel Bard. And you never know what you're going to get on any particular night. Daniel Bard didn't have it. Okay, that happens. And he has to face three hitters. That's the rule. Fine, you got to face three. He went out there,
Right.
He walked a guy, and then he gave up. That isn't his fault. The worst kind of infield hit you can do was just a doinker that went right over his head, in front of the shortstop.
Yeah, it just dropped in no man's land in the infield.
And then he just completely lost control. He hit a batter. No, he walked another batter, and then he hit Jose Altuve.
Then he injured Jose Altuve.
Right. And so it was one of those things where he had three plate appearances and the bases are loaded now with nobody out. And you got to go to somebody else there. Like Daniel Bard just doesn't have command, and that's okay. That happens. But Mark DeRosa is just like,
because he had thrown a wild pitch by that point, right?
Yeah, he had thrown a wild pitch.
I'm pretty sure he'd thrown at least one.
If you were one of these lower tier teams, if your team is real and you're putting Richard Blyer out there or something, then I understand being like, this is our guy. We got to ride it out. Hopefully he can regain his control. But that's not the case with the U.S. You have a lot of guys that you can rely on. So if Daniel Bard doesn't have it, okay, fine. You let him face the minimum and then put out another guy. But Mark DeRosa just let it ride, and it blew up in his face. They gave up the lead, and then thankfully Trey Turner cranked the grand slam that
saved to the day.
I said this to Sean. If the U.S. goes on to win, this will be that Adam Jones catch for this year. This will be the moment that everybody is on all the highlight reels everybody talks about. It was super, super cool. But I just want to get that out of the way. Mark,
that's probably the greatest moment of the WBC so far.
Yeah, it was remarkable.
Go ahead 0-2 grand slam.
Amazing.
I mean, that's tough to beat.
It was incredible. And the lead held and they won the game. So you can't ask for more than that. But the thing that I just want to say is, Mark DeRosa, you could tell was in over his head. And I think I don't remember all the managers, but I remember Joe Torre managed at one point, Buck Martinez and Jim Leland. These are all guys who are accomplished big league managers. I'm not sure about Buck Martinez, but I know he did manage in the big leagues. And then Mark DeRosa, they brought in a guy who's an MLB Network analyst, and he played for a long time. And I like Mark DeRosa. I like him on MLB Network. He's a fun guy.
They brought in a guy who's on TV.
Yeah, I like Mark DeRosa a lot. I think he's a lot of fun, and he's good at his job. He's not a manager, and the thing is, there are plenty of guys out there that I'm sure would jump at the job, and they brought in a rookie basically, and it showed. He didn't know what he was doing last night, and it worked out okay, and that was fine. And if they win, then Mark DeRosa will get credit like everybody else, and that's perfectly fine. But I think this has got to show the program, when it comes to something like this, tournament style baseball, and especially it's not like an MLB team where you can tell the front office making a lot of the decisions. I don't think that's the case here. I think it's more the manager.
Yeah, there is no front office.
Right, there is no front office. I mean, I'm sure they have statistics guys working for them and stuff, but it's more the manager. You got to have somebody who really knows what they're doing. And if you want to stick with Jim Leland, Joe Torre, those types, that's fine. But you can't bring in somebody like Mark DeRosa and say he'll figure it out on the fly, because he easily could have lost the U.S. that game last night, and that would have ended the tournament. So I don't want to put it.
Yeah, that's kind of always been my opinion. My opinion on managers has transformed to Like when I was a kid and I just listened to what people said on TV, it was like, dude, you need a good manager. He's got to be making good moves. I have evolved in my opinions, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. I think we talked about this in when we were talking about Joe Girardi
Oh,
a year ago. At this point, it is very hard for a manager to make a positive difference, just because in MLB again, so many of the decisions are made by the front office. The manager can't really make the players play that much differently. Like, you can't make them hit more home runs or whatever. There's a little bit that you can do here and there if you have, like, if you're a hitting coach or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot of positive difference you can make. You can make a lot of negative difference if
yeah.
you are just not pulling the right strings, which DeRosa, at least there, did not pull the right string. And the U.S. almost paid for it really badly.
Yeah.
He is very fortunate that not only did U.S. pitching generally keep Venezuela pretty quiet after that, aside from another homer from Arias, also, Trey Turner hit a grand slam and bailed everybody out, which, I can't get mad about that. That was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I'm so happy that you get to watch Mike Trout actually be, happy about a baseball game and not like, and Trout goes 4 for 5 with 2 homers, 7 RBIs as the Angels fall 10-8.
Right.
Like, you finally get to watch Trout. Trout didn't even play all that well in this game. Like, he finally gets to just be a guy on the team,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's their best player, but he's got a team behind him in this World Baseball Classic where when he's not on fire, everybody else picked him up. Trey Turner picked him up today.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Trout, I've loved Trout for years. Obviously, that's not a particularly interesting take to be a huge Trout fan, but it does suck to watch this generational talent just languish on the Angels and just be bored as hell because the Angels win 78 games every year.
Yeah.
So that was a nice change of pace. And it's cool to watch, especially somebody like Turner, who we're excited for as Phillies fans. Turner looked a little bit lost in that game, but then Bracho threw him a center cut fastball and he did not miss it. One of the worst 0-2 pitches you could possibly have thrown. And not a great guy to throw it to, although there is not a great guy to throw it to in that U.S. lineup.
Well,
so,
Kyle Higashioka.
I think we were
past.
Yeah, but he's not in the lineup.
That's a good point. He wasn't.
We were joking that DeRosa was going to pinch hit Higashioka for like Schwarber. Like calls him back. DeRosa calls back Schwarber, and it looks like he's sending out Kyle Higashioka. Well, that's an interesting choice from DeRosa. I think, DeRosa may very well end up being a good manager. It's just that he's never done it before.
Yeah, he's learning on the fly.
So he goes out there and listen, I've managed many elite teams, okay, such as the men's league team that I used to play for. I think there is a little bit to trusting your guys. That's probably not the right situation for that.
At this point in the tournament, you have to manage everything like it's Game 7 of the World Series.
If you got a starter in like a regular season game or even like a postseason game, if he starts to labor a little bit, but he's a good pitcher, it can be worth it to give him a second chance to kind of push through it. That was not a guy who was otherwise good laboring a little bit. Like Daniel Bard just didn't have it at all.
Right.
Like that was a 3-batter minimum, easy.
Yep.
And I feel bad being so negative about that one part of the game because otherwise, the United States, they beat Venezuela, which I was not confident about because Venezuela has looked really good in this tournament.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a bummer to see Venezuela.
Venezuela
they did, yeah.
Like Martin Perez put him in a big hole early, and they almost crawled their way out of it. Venezuela's an elite team, and like you said, with you don't want to be a bummer. I'm super excited the U.S. is moving on, and I think they have the best chance out of anybody winning the tournament at this point. It's just one of those things where I feel like it needs to be talked about because it's like we don't want to forget that this easily could have gone the other way, and I'm not convinced that won't happen again, if that makes sense. And you know why? Because I was listening to Mark DeRosa on the Chris Rose rotation, and he was talking about, his coaching staff. And he's like, this is my first time managing, but he was like, man, I tried to bring in a lot of guys. He's like, Andy Pettit is a great pitching coach. Ken Griffey Jr. is a great hitting coach, whatever. And then he was like, and he was like, and I mean, I got a guy like in my right-hand man that, if I'm making a bad decision, I got a guy who won 700 big league games next to me, Jerry Manuel. And I was like, and Jerry Manuel was a big league manager for a long time. There's nothing wrong with Jerry Manuel, but like he led up to that like he was going to be like, and I have John McGraw next to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got Bobby Cox and
Jerry
Tommy
Manuel?
Lasorda next to me. Yeah.
Like, well, we were talking about
Jerry Manuel is not even the manager whose last name is Manuel from recent days, who I would say is superior.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, if you got to pick one, you got to go with Charlie Manuel, right?
There's nothing wrong with Jerry Manuel. It was just an interesting choice. That's like, well, that's my guy. I mean, you said it last time.
Right.
Jerry Manuel has graduated to just being inherently funny.
I did say that.
Jerry
It's
Manuel.
not like, I think it started with the Johan Santana complete game shutout where he said that was gangsta. And I think the legend has only grown. Like, I just see Jerry Manuel and I start laughing. Like, why? I don't know. It's Jerry Manuel. Like, he didn't do anything to me. It's not like he was like a terrible manager. I think he made some missteps with the Mets, but that team fell apart around him also. I mean, like, at the end of the day, why is he inherently funny? I don't know. Why is like Jack Black inherently funny? Like, it's just they have just reached that point. They've reached like funny, and
some things just are funny. We're going on. There is one more big story that came out of this game. Jose Altuve is out with a broken thumb for at least 2 months. It sounded the timeline's a little up in the air, but on the one hand, I'll give my thoughts. On the one hand, that's a bummer that another superstar, is out for a while because of the World Baseball Classic, and this is just going to be more fodder for people to be like, meaningless tournament doesn't matter. On the other hand, there are a lot of people on the internet being like, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. It's a shame nobody told him what pitch was coming. I agree wholeheartedly, man. Like, I'm not rooting for anybody to get hurt. Like, I'm not sitting there being like, and this one will hit him and he'll get hurt. Yes. But since it happened, is there some sort of, cosmic justice at work? Who am I to say?
There may be.
Like, but I if people
I mean, I don't know.
Astros. Well, if you want to stun on the Astros and be like, I wish you had a trash can telling you what pitch was coming, go ahead, man. Dance on their grave. I don't like them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
See, we can't be rooting for all the Astros to get hurt though, because the bullpen has Ryan Presley in it for the U.S. and the lineup was carried pretty hard by Kyle Tucker last night. So
you're right. Well, they
root for
on the 2017. They weren't on the 2017 team, so I don't have as much. I don't have any beef. I need. All right,
fair enough.
Or I would argue that Jose Altuve and the rest of Carlos Correa and the rest of those guys, they need to squash the beef with us. They haven't. Well, this is going to
go. Listen, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, Carlos Beltran, Alex Cora. I'm going to need you guys to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
And apologize.
If
honestly,
anyone wants to come on and unburden themselves, you can email us at thebaseballpod@gmail.com or find us on Twitter.
I'm trying to help you out. Get you something started.
Yeah. Anyway, this is going to be one. Is there anything else we need to cover? Jose Altuve is out. That sucks for the tournament's prestige, at least.
Yeah.
The U.S. won.
I think, listen, it's about an hour to game time, the U.S. versus Cuba. I mean, you got any early predictions? I know Phil's listening in being like, choose not Cuba again, I dare you.
I mean,
I think this is different because Cuba is not the heavy favorite here. Yeah. Cuba is a huge underdog.
I'm going with the U.S. here. I just don't see Cuba winning, and they're throwing Roenis Elias. Like, come on, guys. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, I just want to say,
to be fair, the U.S. is throwing Wainwright.
If Phil is right and they win, then I hope he clips this and makes fun of me for years. But I got the U.S.
Yeah,
I got the U.S. Let's see. Let's make up a number. I'll go with U.S. 9-2.
9-2. Wow, that's a drubbing. That's a.
All
right, I'm taking the U.S. I'm going. I'm taking the U.S. I'm going 10-5.
All right.
I think that there's going to be a lot of early scoring.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like a mercy rule. Like Cuba's a good enough team, there won't be that. But like, I don't think it's gonna be particularly close.
Right.
Of course, now that I say that,
Yeah,
Cuba's gonna win 18-4. You know, like,
right. Well, I'm kind of looking at. I don't like Roenis Elias against the United States team. He's kind of washed. Like he's a good pitcher still, but like compared to Major League pitching, he's a little bit washed. Like I think he's in relief for like the Rockies or something now. Like he's around. He missed a couple of years. I'm not a whole lot more confident in Wainwright. Wainwright was pretty good last year, but he's shown a lot of signs of age.
Yeah.
I don't think he looked particularly good last time out.
The thing about it though is Cuba is not a lineup full of major league stars. Like they have Robert Moncada and then a lot of guys who are like fringe major leaguers, not even. So like I think Wainwright should be able to handle it. And the US bullpen, despite Daniel Bard, is elite. So I think it shouldn't be much of a problem. Should we predict the Mexico-Japan game tomorrow?
I want Mexico to win. I love Japan, but I'm kind of loving this Mexico. Mexico's been a little bit of a Cinderella story too. I mean, they came in highly rated. Sean was predicting they were going to be good months before the tournament, but I feel like everybody kind of slept on them because Mexico hasn't historically done that great in this tournament. So I think I'm pulling for Japan, or for not Japan. I'm pulling against Japan. I look at Japan and I say,
I despise him.
That's what I'm saying right now.
Is that true? Do you despise Japan?
Well, no, but for the purposes of this prediction,
I despise him.
So wait, so who wins? You gotta give your actual prediction.
I'm taking my prediction. I'm pulling for Mexico. My prediction, I don't think that they're going to be able to stop Japan, unfortunately. Japan just has too much good pitching. Their hitters are all hitting well. I think you're probably looking at like an 8-3 situation in favor of Japan. I'm sorry, Mexico. I'm really liking the way you guys have been playing. I have a case of Joey Meneses that I have had a real hard time shaking. I have long Joey Meneses.
It's metastasized.
What do you think?
This tournament's been wild, and most of the time we've been surprised. I'm going Mexico like 6-5. I think they're throwing Patrick Sandoval, and I think they're gonna just manage this game for like Benji Gill's just gonna like manage for his life in this game. And if they have to bring out Urquidy and Taiwan Walker for a couple innings, so be it. You know what I mean? Like it's all back in the next round. I think they can cobble it together and get 9 innings out and keep them at bay. And the Mexico lineup is good. Like I think they should be able to hit like
it is, yeah.
Run. So yeah, I think they can win like a 1-run game, 2-run game, and keep it really close. I think that's what I think. And then I think Japan will smoke Cuba in the. Is there a silver medal game, or is it just, or a bronze medal game? I mean, or is it just?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Now that I think about it, but
I would assume that the silver medal would be whoever loses in the finals. So
no, the silver medal
that would be a third place game.
Is there a third place game, or do they just do it based on like some sort of tiebreak? I don't remember. There should be.
That's the sort of thing that you would expect a couple of WBC experts like us to know. And you know what? Unfortunately, you had the wrong expectations of the situation because I actually don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask Sean. But yeah, I think Mexico.
Let's look it up real quick.
Yeah, I think
WBC third place game.
I don't think there is actually because
no third place playoff.
So then, how do they determine who comes in third?
It says the ranking of the third and fourth place teams is determined by the WBSC.
Uh-oh. I don't like this.
My brother, Brian, first guest of the podcast alongside my brother's Nick Sikoris is calling, which is our cue because we're going to be heading to the Ethan Pachurski residence to view U.S. versus Cuba, a Cold War matchup that we have both predicted that the U.S. will win. So we're looking at a real Cuban missile crisis here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got U.S. and I got Mexico tomorrow, and you do not have Mexico tomorrow. So we'll see who's right.
No.
All right.
I've been taking favorites, and I have been eaten my words every single time. So let's see if it keeps going.
Yeah, and then
But until then,
you
guys,
took the underdog in Australia and you lost.
I know. Yeah, bet against me, dude. I'm like the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker, except like the reverse of it. So, guys, listen. As always, thank you for listening. Feel free to tweet at us or send us an email with your predictions, or sign up for some Elmer Sins, maybe a little Melvin Mora, or maybe another game that you come up with. Maybe, hey, listen.
Take it easy.
But until then, when next we meet, you will know that
His name is Dan Arla.
as it always is and as it always shall be. We'll see you next time.